Hello and welcome. My name is Justin, and thank you for joining me here at my table today. In this video, we're going to be continuing our Learn to Play D&D series, where I take you from deciding to play in your first game to rolling and even running into your first combat encounter. We're continuing to work on our character, Orym, our noble dwarf, training to become a fighter just like my parents, my grandparents, and those in my family who have really solidified our name into legend, trying to live up to that expectation. Today we're going to be going over ability scores, how to roll them, and determining what our ability scores will be for Orym here. So there are 6 ability scores in the game. What are these ability scores? These are the 6 scores, the 6 numbers that determine the difficulty at which you do anything in the game, right? So you have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So strength is pretty literal. It's your strength, your power, your physical prowess and capabilities. This stat is what determines your how easily you hit with weapons, as well as the damage you do with those weapons, including unarmed strikes with your fists, right? So strength, the higher your strength score is, the more likely you will be to hit with your different types of weapons, and also the more damage you'll be doing with said weapons. Next, we have dexterity. Dexterity is your maneuverability stat, your quickness, your speed. Not specifically your walking speed, unfortunately. I wish it was though. So when the higher your dexterity score is, the more likely you will be to go closer to the top of the initiative order, which is the order at which you will be taking your turns during combat. Your dexterity stat increases the likelihood that you will be going closer to first, right? It also determines how difficult it is for you to be hit. At least it helps determine that, alongside with armor or even some feats. But your armor class, which is what determines how difficult it is for you to be hit with certain types of attacks, can be increased by increasing your dexterity score. Next, we have constitution. Your constitution is your body's capability to withstand damage and other condition effects, right? So your constitution determines your hit points, what hit die you use for your hit points, which we will be going over shortly, as well as how much health, your hit points, how much health you have just in general, right? Then you have intelligence, your smarts, your learning capacity, and your ability to understand, represent, and interpret knowledge. This is the stat that you would typically use for your wizards. Your wizard is going to use this as their main spellcasting ability. So the higher this stat is, the more capable you will be as a wizard, specifically. Next, we have wisdom, your perceptiveness and mental fortitude, right? This is how strong your mind is. Not necessarily how capable your mind is of accepting knowledge, but how strong and how much your experience has influenced how your mind works, right? The higher your wisdom score, the more easily you are able to interpret and perceive your surroundings through perception checks. It's also the typical, more often than not used saving throw when you are being attacked by spells. There's a lot of spells. I would argue not most, but the majority of spells that require a saving throw typically require a wisdom saving throw. So increasing this score will also increase your capabilities against some magic users, right? Then you have your charisma, your social skills, your your ability to navigate social interactions, as well as it increases your deceptiveness. It increases your ability to persuade people to your side, things like that. So those are the 6 scores. Again, it's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So how do we determine what these scores are? There's actually 3 main methods. There is manual roll, also known as random rolling. There's point buy, and there's standard array. Now these are the 3 different types, or 3 different ways you can use to determine what your ability scores are going into your character, right? So the first one we're going to go over is point buy. So point buy is pretty self-explanatory. It is you have a pool of points that you are given, which is 27 points, right? And you can take those points and divvy them up into your different ability scores, which all will start at a base of 8. There's actually a chart you can find in the player's handbook in the ability score section. I believe it's step 3 of creating a character. And so you'll start out with a pool of 27 points, and each of your ability scores are going to be set to 8. And the chart will tell you how many of those points it will cost you to push an ability score up to a certain level. And I believe it goes up to a maximum of 15. Right? So the highest you can take any of the scores using this method is 15. It's actually one of the restrictions of using this system, because you have more control over what score gets, over what ability score gets how many points, okay? Then you have standard array. Standard array is pretty explicit. It is a standard array of numbers that you can apply to your ability scores that will make it that number. In this case, the 6 numbers are 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. These are the 6 score levels that you'll be able to apply to each of your ability scores. You have just as much control of this as you do with point buy, essentially. And it makes it so that you can only max out the score that you apply through this up to 15. And that's pretty much it for standard array. Finally, you have manual rolled. Manual rolled is the randomizer. It is, it's also gives you the highest chance of getting a higher score. If I'm not mistaken, you can the max score you can get is 18. And the way this works is you take 4 6-sided die, right? And you'll take those 4 6-sided die, and for each ability score, you will roll them. So if I want to, I'll roll for strength real quick, just to give you an idea. So I rolled 1, 4, and 2 5s. Now what you'll do here is you roll the 4, and then you get rid of the lowest number. So in this case, I'll get rid of the 1, leaving me with 2 5s and a 4. Adding that up, that's a total of 14. So my strength score will start out at a base of 14. And you will just continue to do this, so on and so forth, until you've done it for all 6 scores. You can do it by, you'll have to talk with your DM if they're okay with this, but you can also roll all 6 of them, get all 6 numbers, and then just divvy them up, or you just roll for each specific score, and that gives you really the most random chance with the littlest control. The system of rolling all 6 and then applying the scores you want to whatever you want is the typical way that I run it at my tables. But again, that's a question for your DM. So let's go ahead and jump into our character, Orym. And we're going to be going with manual rolled. Now, I'm on the D&D Beyond website for this character, and you can actually roll them yourself here, which I will do for this video. But if you don't want to do this and you're doing everything by hand, you'll use the the 4 dice method. I actually caught that. Wow. You'll use the 4 dice method rather than rolling electronically. So now we're going to go ahead and roll the scores. So I've got 1. First one was a 12, not bad. Next one's a 13, even better. Ooh, that's a 9. Not great, but not terrible. Ooh, 15. That's a good one. 8. Not great, but not terrible. And a 16. That's a really, really good one. Okay, so we have our 6 scores here. Now, we can take this pool and divvy them up however we want to. Okay? Now, because I am a fighter, it makes the most sense for me to apply the highest score to my strength score. But I'm going to keep in mind that because I chose the noble background, I get my extra 3 points to an ability score that I mentioned last video. So we'll actually be jumping back over to the background section here in a little bit once I divvy these up. But I can apply 2 points to one score and one to another, or I can apply 1 to 3 different scores. So I'm going to take that into account whenever I'm doing this. I don't mind my charisma being my lowest score, specifically because using a character like this, I'm not going to need my charisma all that much. And being a nobleman, I like to think I'm a bit posh, that I look down on the general public. Could be one of my flaws. Or I even look down on those who are weak. That could be another thing that I perceive as being weak. Then I will put my intelligence at 9 because I don't really feel like I'll be using intelligence all that much. And then so that's my 2 bottom scores. Now I'm going to do my 2 top scores, the 15 and 16. So if I'm going to have a fighter, I'm going to want to have a really high constitution. Because I'm going to be in the fray, and I'm not a barbarian who's able to handle all of that damage. I don't have quite the health pool that a barbarian does. So I'm gonna put my constitution at the top, and I'm going to do so with the idea of putting my 2 points into constitution to push it to 18, right? Next, I'm going to put my strength at 15. I want my second highest score to be my main ability score that I'll be using. In this case, it'll be strength, because as a fighter, all of my abilities are with martial weapons. So my strength score is going to be crucial to my capabilities as a fighter. Finally, I have the 2 middle scores, which I'll be placing in either dexterity or wisdom. I personally want my dexterity to be a little higher than my wisdom. So I'm going to put dexterity at 13, and my wisdom is going to be at 12. This way I have at least a little bit of an increased capability to withstand some of those wisdom saving throw attacks, but for the spells and such that I need to dodge using dexterity saving throws instead of wisdom, I have an even higher chance of doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply scores, and they all apply themselves here. So now I'm going to go down here. You'll notice that there are modifiers to some of these, right? Some of these being... Oh, no, yeah, your modifier numbers are the numbers that you'll apply to your skills, which we'll be going over here in just a minute. Just the ability score that you have, the level of that ability will determine the level of the modifier that it gives to the skills that use that ability score. Every skill uses one of these ability scores. But for now, I'm going to go back to my background. And this is where I get to choose my ability score. So I'm going to increase 1 score by 2 and another by 1. And specifically, the 2 one is going to be... Oh, I have to do strength, intelligence, or charisma. That's right. I forgot about that. Which is fine. I'll still keep the scores that I have. I'm going to do +2 in strength, which will bring me up to a level 16 strength, I believe, or 17, one of the two. 17. And then I will apply the other one to... We will do intelligence, just to bring my intelligence out of that 9 and bring it up to a level of 10, which means I don't have any negative modifiers to it. So when I go back to my ability scores and I come down here, it should have adjusted, yes. So my noble ability score here gives me a 10, which makes the modifier +1. It would have been -1 had I not done this. Now, if I go up to my strength, strength is a 17, and I've got a +3 on the modifier for that. So that is great. And I'm pretty happy with this. Right, so next we're going over equipment. So this is a little bit easier on D&D Beyond, but if you're looking at it using paper and books, in the section of, in the fighter section of the player's handbook, it'll give you a list of what you can choose from in terms of equipment, as well as in your background. The background also gives you some more equipment. So in this case, fighter starting equipment, noble starting equipment, and you can choose some one choice from both of them. You don't have to choose either or. So in this case, I can have chainmail, greatsword, flail, 8 javelins, dungeoneer's pack, and 4 gold pieces. Excuse me. Or I can take leather armor, scimitar, short sword, longbow, 20 arrows, quiver, dungeoneer's pack, and 11 gold pieces, or just 155 gold pieces. I'm going to go with the chainmail and greatsword. I think that this character would be focused on using the most weapons possible, and I also need to make sure that I have the greatest capability to withstand damage, and having that chainmail armor instead of leather is going to increase my armor class, making it harder for things to hit me. It's fine if I have a little bit of gold, a little less gold than I otherwise would have. That's okay. I'm not too worried about that. Can actually fix that down here in the noble class. So I would get the gaming set, same as above, which would be the gaming set that I chose for my proficiency, which was the dice set, a set of fine clothes, perfume, and 29 gold pieces, or I can just take 50 gold pieces. I don't personally care about the fine clothes or perfume. Being as my character is focused so much on learning how to be a good fighter, learning physical prowess, weapon masteries, things like that, I would rather use the get the gold pieces so that I can maybe increase my armor choices or get a different weapon, whatever have you. And then I'll go ahead and add that to my starting equipment. And that's all she wrote. This will add everything that is in that in all of those choices I made for my equipment directly to my inventory. If you're doing it on pen and paper, you're going to have to look up what the adventuring gear has. That's where the backpack, caltrops, crowbar, and all this other stuff came from, was in the adventuring gear pack. So you'll have to look that up in the item section of the player's handbook, if I'm not mistaken. And so, finally, we have our character, Orym. On second thought, I think that I will save going over all the skills for the next video. I don't want to make this too much to go over in one video, so I'm going to stick with just having done the ability scores and gone over finalizing the equipment. And if you've been following along with me and making your own character, you should have full access to the wonderful and beautiful character that you have made. If you're doing it by pen and paper, you're going to have to fill out all of your ability scores here, which is this big long list, and you're going to be whichever skills you took proficiencies in, you'll check off the proficiency for that, and you'll add your proficiency bonus here, which is determined based on your level. You can find that in the proficiency section of the player's handbook. So yeah, we now have our dwarvish nobleman fighter, Orym, ready for his first adventure. So I want to thank you for joining me in this video today. If you liked it, please hit the like. If you want to, please subscribe. I'm going to have more videos coming out very soon. I've even got some other plans that I'm working on, maybe even a podcast game. But I'll be updating you a little bit more on that coming forward. But thank you again for joining me here today. I hope you have a wonderful day.